Uh, Hi, everybody. Yeah, Senor. Welcome to the Q&A. We are going to go ahead and get started. We're probably going to have a few more people come in here, but thank you for joining us. We're happy to answer any questions that you guys might have about Prime and the program and your application or whatever you might want to cover. There is a button on your interface there that says Q&A. It looks like a little turquoise talk bubble. If you click on that, you can go ahead and type in a question, and we'll see it, and we'll be able to click on it and answer it, and it'll record it in the recording that way, so that we know what questions got answered. So feel free to do that. If you can't get that sorted out, feel free to email us something, and I'll try and kind of keep an eye on my email, the hello@primeacademy.io email throughout the talk, and answer any questions that come in that way as well. To get started, why don't you guys all introduce yourselves, and we can kind of go from there.
Everyone, my name is Fred. Excuse me. I'm the guy on the team who's helping out with a lot of the educational aspects, curriculum, and some of the career readiness. So we've been working pretty hard here on making sure that we're going to have things lined up for you so that you'll be prepped for jobs and also have a great team-based environment to work on. My background is in psychology. I was undergrad psychology major, worked in clinical psych for a bunch of years, and then moved to education. I have half a dozen years working in higher education and also some Fortune 500 companies within education and training there.
Awesome. My name is Scott Romander. I'm the first instructor for Prime. My background specifically, I came from the nerdery. I was a software engineer here for the past 3.5 years. I worked on over 70 really cool projects with the nerdery. I'm super passionate about learning because while working at the nerdery, I've also been teaching at a collegiate level for the past 5, teaching specifically web design, animation, and game design development. In the past life, I was one of Best Buy's corporate trainers, flying all around the country doing large-scale technical trainings to groups of about 200 people at a time. Super excited working with Fred on working on the curriculum right now for Prime. Yeah, it's the short.
I'm Mark. I'm the president of Prime. My background is I've been working for the last 10 years. Most recently, I've been working at the Nerdery as a designer, a developer, and I ran marketing for a number of years. And then I was in charge of kind of strategic direction for the company for the most recent years. I'm super excited to be engaged at Prime. I'm a passionate lifelong learner. I'm very motivated around helping people to help themselves through education. I'm super excited about all the interest and the demand that we've seen in the market and the conversations that we've had around Prime. And I know that there's going to be some really great opportunities for the students that come through the program. So these guys are the experts. I'm more kind of the other stuff kind of guy. But yeah, yes, exactly. That's why we're a tie. But yeah, we're really excited to answer questions from you guys today. Really, the objective of the Q&A is for you guys to be able to, ask any specific questions or general questions, whatever you have that you feel like hasn't been answered yet by the website or that you want clarification on. We're really here to do this. This is the last of the 4 that we had scheduled, and we've gotten great questions in all of them. So if you guys don't generate any questions, we'll just kind of reiterate things that we said before to other people. But we would very much love to spend this time answering questions that you guys specifically have. If the picture starts to vibrate, it's because it is freakishly cold in this room, and it's just us shivering. So don't adjust your monitors. I guess so. Go ahead and use the Q&A interface. Drop in questions. We're going to go ahead and just kind of talk about some things that we've heard from other questions in the past until we start to get some questions from you guys, and then we'll switch over to live questions. What has been a compelling question that we've heard so far from you guys that you think would be worth talking about?
Sure. Some people have asked about the preload 6 weeks, so basically the pre-study section that we have. And again, to reiterate, that's to make sure that everyone's at a good foundational starting point when they start the in-classroom experience. And that's because we're going to be moving very fast within the classroom. We want to make sure that people are at a baseline level so that they can work effectively together. So a lot of that's going to be reinforcing some of the initial skills you've learned by creating the resume portion. And then we want to take it a little bit further too. So that's online and self-paced. We will have some check-ins during that 6 weeks as well. But the commitment on that is going to be about 10 hours a week. And
10 to 13.
10 to 13. And if you have specific questions around that, availability, or I know a lot of you have full-time jobs or you're balancing several different things in your lives, just drop us an email, let us know, and we're very amenable to helping you out on a one-on-one basis to make sure that it works for you.
Yeah, a lot of the preload section is a much more flexible portion of the course than other things are. I think, we've had a lot of questions, people saying, hey, I have a vacation scheduled, or I'm going to be, gone for this period, or I know I have this thing going on during preload. That's generally stuff that we can work with. Being gone for a week in the middle of classroom is probably not something that's going to work out. So we have a bunch of different cohorts that we're accepting applications for right now to hopefully make it, flexible enough that you can find a time that would work for you. But know that preload is something, since it's mostly self-driven and self-paced, you're able to kind of work your schedule around a little bit. For the actual classroom, that's a more significant investment that's required on your part, and kind of a investment of time.
Yeah, and we're comfortable with the online material in there, and I know Scott and I have talked about this too. When we focus on foundational things, that's where some of the self-paced stuff works very well. But when you get into things at greater depth, oftentimes what you'll find is they don't make some of those connections with the conceptual underpinnings very strongly, or they assume that you have a lot of prior knowledge and depth that might be misplaced assumptions. And at this point, at the preload phase, that's where a lot of that foundational stuff is. It's clear, it's well done, and it gives you an opportunity to slowly enter into getting into a little more depth so we can move fast once we're in the classroom. So,
yeah, just to kind of expand upon that, a lot of stuff that's covered in the preload is very linear. And because it's so linear, it's easier to kind of digest on your own. And if you have a quick question on something, you can probably Google something on the web and get the answer, or reach out to your classmates. The stuff that's covered in the classroom basically takes all that stuff, slides it over, because what is really happening is that the technology stack is very linear to a point, and then all of a sudden it explodes. And in that explosion, basically, all these different points assume different knowledge depending on where the training is. So you might engage in content that assumes that you have the other four, when the reality is that it's actually the first node that you're hitting, so you actually don't have that stuff for that. Well, that's really what we try to do in the classroom, is teach it from the perspective of, I already know what you already know, so I know how to expand or how to teach you, because I know how, what context you have. So really the preload stuff is really all about kind of that learning that we can kind of just get out of the way right away. So just an example would be like, a for loop, right? Or object inheritance, and those kinds of things that are general programming concepts that really you can actually find online, either through a cheap resource or even a free resource. And we kind of just want to get that stuff out of the way and get to the meat a lot faster. That way we can kind of hit the classroom day one talking about advanced concepts of being a software engineer.
We had a question out here that says, during the preload period, are there certain hours that we have to be online, or is it on your own time? And just probably a little bit of both.
Fred and I are still talking about the specifics, but we are actually looking at a model where there's going to be 1 hour each week, whether it be 2 times a week, or we decide to change it based on what's going on with the cohort, where we'd like to have you attend one of the 2 1-hour sessions, basically just to kind of check in as a group and see what kind of as a group what questions are popping up. But the rest of the content, we are basically designed a framework to ensure that you can kind of do it when you have time. So, whether that be after work, the kids are asleep, it's now 10 o'clock and you have 3 hours before 1 o'clock to study, like that's kind of designed in that way. But we would like to basically capture you for an hour just to kind of pull you into the rest of the group. That way you can get to know the cohort, we can get to know you, you guys can get to know each other. And that way we're a lot more of a cohesive unit once we get into the classroom. We can just kind of get down running. Fred, do you want to?
No, it's well put. So we're looking to have flexibility in it, but we are looking for an hour check-in a week.
But once again, I don't want that to be a deal breaker either. We'll talk about specific situations with the people that we accept for that cohort.
Okay, next question. Will there be certification exams at the end of the course to get certified in the respective skills? And I'm going to preface this with a little bit of a general conversation about certification and accreditation. The crux of which is to say that that Prime is we're pursuing actually right now, we will have it by the time we open, a licensed private career school in Minnesota. We are not an accredited institution, so we are not a degree granting institution that's going to be providing you with something that is going to be like a recognized degree the same way that an accredited institution would. Our focus is very much on getting you a job and trying to help you with employment. So that's really where our emphasis has shifted. We're working on what are called articulation agreements with a couple different educational institutions where you may be able to get credit for prior learning based on your studies at Prime towards a degree if you wanted to pursue that path. But generally, we're kind of skipping the middleman a little bit and really focused on connecting you with employers that want to hire you through our employment network. That said, we can talk a little bit about what our perspective on grading and evaluation is within the program, because there is an element to that within it, even though it's not towards a official diploma.
Yeah, and it's a great question. What you'll find is that a lot of times the accelerated learning programs have they're almost a different mold than some of the traditional accreditation programs that are out there. So a lot of times the things that fit within accredited career schools, higher education, or kind of the more spread out semester-based classroom education style, it's a very different model sometimes, and it's a tough fit to go through those processes initially. A lot of the boot camps out there too, especially in California, they're still working out what that would even look like at a state level. So it's one of those things that absolutely state by state accelerated learning programs are working through, but it's not quite there at a state level to have it be the same thing as an educational institution. That's speaking from personally having worked at Harvard. I've gone through a couple of those processes, and it's it's very different on this side of the program. So it's something that we're absolutely looking for, that we're working towards too, but it'll take a while. It's a great question.
Yeah. And so this is a question after my own heart. It says, will there be time to grab fast food or lunch, or should students always bring something from home? Is there a refrigerator we can use? That's exactly what we want you to be thinking about, is how are you going to get fed? So we're trying to, I can give you kind of a general answer, which is, yes, there's going to be a big industrial double-sized fridge for students to use. We're trying to set up a pretty nice kitchen cafeteria area for people to socialize, play games over lunch hour sometimes, as well as we'll have some days where we're focused on some kind of group discussion things that are more part of the curriculum. I am working, so for those of you that don't know, one of the founders of Prime is The Nerdery, which is a software development company here in Bloomington that has about 500 employees. They're also one of our hiring partners, and will be seeking to hire apprentices and entry-level employees out of the program. The Nerdery has a system that they call NOM, which is basically an ordering system where every day there's 3 or 4 different restaurants that you can order from, and then it gets delivered to the Nerdery, and you just go pick it up and you can eat it. So you don't have to go out in the disgustingly cold weather like it is today to go get a Wendy's or whatever. So we're working on figuring out how we could extend visibility and access to that system to students of the school so that we could provide that. I don't have a definitive answer that we're going to definitely be able to do that, but I'm pretty confident that we'll figure something out. I mean, the interest is to be able to have you guys be focused on your education and not worried about, you know, where you're going to get your fries or whatever from. And if we end up, you know, doing a fax order to Chipotle every day or something like that, we can figure out how to do it. But hopefully we'll be able to provide something that's a little more systematic. There definitely will be an opportunity for you guys to have places to prep food with microwaves and fridges and stuff like that. So we don't quite have the meal plan figured out yet, but we're hoping to be able to offer something akin to that.
Coincidentally, there's actually something called the Nerdy 30 here, where it's because we have access to food like that, you automatically just kind of put on 30 pounds and you start working on the Nerdy.
Yeah.
Anyways,
it's back to the freshman 30 at this point with the school. But
we don't expect that that's going to happen with the students. Just
with a condensed amount of time, it would be, you know, that might be a little alarming, actually.
And we do have some exercise and some healthy options for that too. I'm just going to be the person, the voice of reason here.
Yeah. Buzzkill Fred. That's what we call him. Okay, so enough comedy. Here's a question that says, are you using a platform like Codecademy for preload?
Great question. We're actually using, so we're getting our content from kind of a mix of places, but the primary one being Code School, which is similar to Codecademy. If you go check out Code School, you're going to notice that it's actually a paid, you need to pay for a membership there. We're working out some deals with Code School and kind of working through all of that. But
will be, to be clear, that your tuition will be covering that service, though. It's not an additional cost that you have to pay in addition to tuition.
Like I said, we're working through all of that, so making sure that the content lines up for what we would like to see for people coming into school. So we do have some courses selected from Code School, and they're very similar to Codecademy, with the exception that they're a little bit better because they provide videos as well too. So you're actually not only getting the coding interface, which provides you feedback about how you're coding, but also there's video explanations, which adds another layer of depth of explanation and understanding, which is important because of the content that we're covering is a lot more than just basic HTML, CSS.
And for people who are using Codecademy and things like that right now, it's totally fine. It's a great resource. You know, really our decision to go with Code School, even though it's a paid service, had a lot more to do with the accessibility of it. You know, Codecademy is great, but it does kind of throw you into the deep end a little bit in some ways, and that it's very much doing based, which is awesome. But we like the kind of video-based training. We thought that until we have you in the classroom where we can kind of replace videos with Charming Scott here, we wanted to be able to give something that was a little more accessible for people in general, and Code School does a good job of providing that. So.
Additionally, it does go a little bit deeper than what you're going to find in Codecademy too. So it's another appealing thing to us, very much.
Okay, it's a question that is timely. It says, are you still planning to start sending out interest or rejection emails this week for December applicants? If you're rejected on the first go-round, can you reapply later?
Great question. We actually, Fred and I, just before this video chat, we have been working through the list, and so we're expecting to start sending up emails starting tomorrow. So I'll let you know either way. I guess the second part of that question too, if we decide not to move forward with your application at this time, we'd like to invite you to reapply. In a re-application scenario, you just would not be available for the cohort that's coming up. So if you receive a rejection email, we'd like you to kind of take a look at your application, take a look at the feedback that we provided, and then have another crack at the at your submission, but the beta will not be available to you.
So. And we're a little bit busy right now with between admissions and curriculum development and kind of continuing to build up the partner network and everything. But if you do have questions, either certainly if you receive a kind of a thanks, here's some things that you can work on email, you can definitely ask questions back. We might not be hugely 4 hours or less response time on that stuff, but we do want to make some details available to you, and we're trying to provide personalized feedback for you, for people who took the time to go through the entire application process, and let you know kind of where we're seeing red flags that we think that you could work on, or things that could help sway us.
Absolutely. And again, to reiterate, we want to make sure that we're your advocates too. So when we're basically giving you feedback, it's to make sure that you can do the most that you can to get your baseline knowledge in order so that you'll be able to succeed within the program. And also there might be some feedback too to make sure, is this the right resource for you? Because sometimes there's some things or some questions that we might want to make sure that you're completely dedicated to it, to make sure that it's a good fit for you from the vast resources that are out there. Let's go.
Yeah, I was going to make one more point on the other side of this. If you actually receive the opposite letter, that means we're interested in scheduling an interview with you, and we'll have instructions on how to do that. So yes, more on that to follow. Great question.
Yeah, so there's another stage of admissions here after the initial application.
It's a long road to becoming a programmer. So make sure that don't feel dissuaded if the first crack at it doesn't work out.
Yeah, to be completely fair, everyone who's applied so far who's completed their application has been really good. So it's actually is some really tough discussions that
absolutely
Fred and I have been having. Yeah. So if you receive one of those letters, don't feel like you didn't do a good job. That's not it at all.
And this is kind of a related question. It says, how many spots are left in the first beta cohort? And 20. Really, we haven't made any application or any admissions decisions at this point. We won't be doing that until we do interviews with people. Our expectation is that we're going to be, we may make some offers on a rolling basis as we go through, but at this point, I do not expect us to make any offers of admission prior to the cutoff for the application date, which is January 22nd. So we're really looking at scheduling interviews and then going from there. Here's a question that says, during the, oh great. All right, my notification popped up over the top of the question. Give me a second here. During the 12-week classroom part, how much work will be outside of class hours on weekdays and weekends?
Sure, so the class is scheduled from 8 to 6 every day. From there, there might be kind of like nightly assignment check-ins thing, and mostly that has to do with if there's a concept that is a difficult concept, we want to make sure that you understand that concept before moving on to the next day. So that can take anywhere from at night. It basically it depends on your level of understanding. If you're having a really hard time grasping the concept and trouble engaging the material, it might take you a little bit longer than somebody who is able to get that concept quickly. And I think that having taught for almost a decade now, one of the things I want to mention is that some concepts are going to come really natural to people, and some concepts are just going to be really difficult for people. So everyone will kind of fall on either side of the coin at some point in the program. The other part of that too is that there absolutely are weekend assignments, and those weekend assignments are designed to recap the week. So if you feel like you have good mastery over the week, chances are it'll go relatively quick, and it will be a couple-hour assignment. If you maybe had troubles with the concepts and didn't really go into the weekend with a strong knowledge base, we're probably going to put the screws to you a little bit and making sure that you can nail the concepts over the weekend before getting into even more difficult concepts of next week. So yes, there's nightly work. Yes, there is weekend work as well too.
And is some of that weekend work is going to be kind of group style work as well?
It's going to vary a bit. it. So some solo, some group, some.
Yeah, so some of that will control kind of how much time you need to dedicate. Obviously, if you're working on your own, you can kind of control your schedule a little more. You kind of need to collaborate with your team if you're working on a group project. So, okay, next question. What are some generic job titles or roles this training will prepare us for? For example, will we be ready to apply as a junior JavaScript developer? I'll start, and then you guys can take off on that. We basically are. The notion that we have is that Prime is really designed to try and turn you into a developer stem cell, right? So somebody who kind of has some base level of knowledge and is going to be able to evolve their career in a number of different directions in order to move forward. Straight out of the program, if you just go through the 18-week program that we're providing, our goal is to have you be qualified for entry-level work in JavaScript or in front-end development. We also have this apprenticeship network that we're building out that is kind of, we're working with employers to have them understand what you're going to know coming out of the 18-week period. And in many cases, those are going to be at companies that do .NET development, that do Java development, that do PHP, that do Ruby, that do Python. And they are entering into these apprenticeship opportunities knowing what we're teaching you guys. So they're expecting to kind of provide you with some additional grounding to take advantage of the talent that you have in JavaScript, but to provide some additional kind of exposure to some of that technology. A lot of that is probably going to be more self-driven learning, and that's why we're focusing on a lot of techniques and tools that you can use in the program to keep your education going on after that. But really the jobs that you're going to be qualified for straight out of the program without any additional work on your part is entry-level JavaScript, entry-level front-end development. And our expectation is that people who are motivated, that are passionate, interested in other technologies and stuff are going to be able to get themselves up to a hireable level in that with not a huge amount of effort. We're going to be giving you the tools to be able to do that on your own.
Mark said no. So yeah, I think to kind of expand off Mark's point, just like we're accountable to you guys, making sure that you are hireable at the end of this program. We are also accountable to our hiring network and making sure that we're actually producing hireable graduates. So I know being on the other side of the screens, it's easy to kind of see like, oh, they really want to do this. Is this really going to work? For us, we actually have another side of that coin, and making sure that we are doing what we say we can do with our graduates. So part of doing that is actually talking to our hiring network and taking a look at like what types of things are important to that hiring network in order to make somebody hireable. And so as Mark likes to describe it, we basically took all the job descriptions and kind of transposed them on top of each other and said, okay, this is the common job description that we see across our 35 partners, 30 where we're at now, for an entry-level developer. And so we're extracting those common components and putting them into the curriculum. So what Mark said plus that. Fred, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. If you take a look at a lot of the bootcamp models that are out there, there's a variety of focuses, and some are basically looking for what they call entry-level people who are basically already fairly strong developers of one sort or another. So we don't expect you to have a 4-year CS degree coming into the program. Along with that, though, there definitely is an emphasis that we put on making sure that people have motivation, drive, and also an ability to, and a motivation, well, an interest in continual self-learning. And that's a big thing for the hiring partners too. If you're coming in as an entry-level developer, for many companies, they assume that that's going to require an aspect of mentorship and some help and some time for you to get up to speed if it's a different language that they're working on, for instance. So a lot of times the things that they look for are going to be, are you the type of person who has the mentality and the mindset and the drive to dive into that and be able to accomplish that well? Yeah. So those are a lot of the things that what we're looking for. We're going to equip you with the foundation and understanding of basically how to get to that point. But many jobs out there might require you to get started on a different language. That'll be far easier to do when you have a very solid foundation and understanding of everything that we're going to be teaching you. But just to be clear, entry-level developers, that could mean very many different things to different companies. But we're focused on making sure that you are going to be prepared for that wide variety of positions that are going to be out there.
Yeah, the one thing I would add to that is, so I was meeting with a prospective partner that when that actually had reached out to us after they heard about the program today, and this is a local company. They're Eden Prairie based. They hired 50 application developers last year, so very significant employer, tons of opportunity there, interesting work. And one of the things that the head of their team said to me today during the conversation that we were having is he said, yeah, well, at entry level, we're not necessarily hiring for a technical skill set, So I think that's a big part of it is that, they hire their entry level people based on, their aptitude, their curiosity, a little bit their background, but they're really interested in Prime as a place to try and find the right kind of people that are going to have some good background, and they're actually, interested in sending us people that they find too that we could kind of train up. So I think that you'll find that that there are actually a very broad swath of entry-level development positions that you'll be able to be qualified for coming out of the program, certainly within the hiring network, and I think quite a bit outside the hiring network as well.
Absolutely.
I'm kind of reading that one.
Okay, so this says, you mentioned Code School as a resource that'll be included in the curriculum. Are there others you can talk about? Will we need any books or other first day of school type necessities? Trapper Creepers, right?
Yeah, Trapper Creepers called it.
Lunchbox.
Yeah, Star Wars Lunchbox. No, so Code School, just to be clear, is actually going to be part of the preload, basically that 6-week portion before class starts. And a lot of the preload work will actually have, so yes, part of Code School. Once we get into classroom, you can use Code School to supplement what's going on in the classroom. So if there's a concept like, gosh, you listen to me explain it, you listen to your fellow students explain it, and you're just having a really hard time grasping that concept. I wanted to have resources I could point to, whether it be Code School or a book or some other places to get that information to kind of hear it explained in different ways, so it might help you grasp that concept. So it's used in the 6-week preload, and then it's also used in the 6-week kind of in-classroom experience, that first 6 weeks to kind of help you through some of the trickier stuff. But I will have a book list. We're not requiring any books, but I'm going to have a book list for you to kind of help supplement what's kind of going on in class. But basically, once you're in and you paid your tuition, you have everything you need to kind of be equipped. Anything you want to do above and beyond that is, we'll provide recommendations, but we certainly aren't going to, you have to buy these extra books. Like, that's not kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to have it all ready to go for. And actually, I'm spending a great deal of time making sure that that's the case, that you have everything you need once you hit the classroom. So.
This is a short and sweet question. It says, is job placement guaranteed? And it's guarantee is a tricky term. It has a lot of legal connotations, I guess. What I can tell you is that we have really just an incredibly positive response from the employment network. We have 35 organizations signed up that are interested in partnering with us. Most of those are people who are interested in hiring apprentices and entry-level candidates. I would say, and part of the reason why we have 35 people signed up is that I talked to 36 people, and there is a tremendously positive response. People are really, really interested in the program. Really, I've had companies say things like, "Well, can we hire an entire cohort worth of people?" And it's so I can't guarantee you right now. We really want to build the background and the kind of the track record before we look into what we can guarantee to students. I can tell you that I feel very confident that students are going to have great prospects for hiring, but really, at the end of the day, a big part of it is up to you. I mean, it's how can you present yourself? What are you willing to put in? How hard are you willing to work? Based on the competitiveness and the stuff that we've seen in applications so far, I'm really confident that these first couple of cohorts, if the quality of students that we're seeing coming in it stays consistent, I think that we're going to have excellent placement rates, and we may be able to eventually get to a point where we offer a guarantee. It's just not something that we're able to do immediately. So
yeah, I think to expand off that point too. This guarantee is such, like as Mark mentioned, such a legal word. You got to be really careful with it. But on the Prime website, if you take a look, you can see that there is a need for skilled talent to work in these positions. The other thing too is that we are building the curriculum based off what the hiring network is telling us. So what I can say is that XYZ, like if hiring partner is looking for XYZ, and there is a need for jobs. So
Yeah, this is not a Field of Dreams type situation where we're saying, oh, like this would be cool. Scott really wants to teach that, and Fred thinks it sounds shiny, so we're going to do that. We're working with the people on the employment network, saying, what do people need to know to be able to come and do their job on day one, week one, month one, and that's what we're training you in Prime to do. So, there's not a lot of room for error or distance and kind of blank space between what we're doing with curriculum and what the employers want. So, okay. Can you describe a day in the life of a software developer, about how many hours spent writing code versus other activities? What other activities are involved? Scott, you want to?
Yeah, that's a great question. We got this last round too, and I just love this one. So just before I exited to come over to Prime, I was with the Nerdery as a software engineer. Typically, I was leading a number of my projects. So the kinds of projects that I was working on would be anywhere, I'd have anywhere from like 1 to 2 at a time. They're typically kind of mid to small range applications, meaning that either quick turn time or kind of a medium turn time, either a couple weeks or a couple months. Typically, my day consisted of about 4 hours of actual programming, and the other 4 was usually spent about 1 to 2 working with client communication, looking at things like the scope of work agreement. Nerdery, just real quick, we do projects for clients, so clients come to us with projects that they would like to have completed, and that's our business model. That's how we make money. And part of that is that we're building projects to the client spec. So we take a look at the client spec and what they're looking for versus what is being built, and obviously there's communication back and forth as things change, as they see the build being built. They're like, oh, hey, we said this, but can we kind of change it this based off now that we're seeing it? So you got to be a little bit protective of, this is how much money they spent versus how much time we're spending, that kind of thing. So basically 1 to 2 hours working with the client, making sure that we're building what they want. The other 1 to 2 is typically spent with the team, so checking in with the other people on the team, making sure that the components that they're building are once again to spec, that they're not running into any blockers, that maybe they might have a difficult concept themselves that they can't work through, and so we'll kind of work on programming together or working through the logic together, and then also to just kind of like general project health. So looking at take a look at the repository for the code. Making sure that people are checking in their code correctly, that the project's healthy, healthy from a code standpoint, and kind of just ensuring that the project is going according to plan. And those numbers tend to change based on how many projects are going on. So like I said, you can run 1 or 2 projects or 3 projects if you are working through smaller stuff. And then I'd say, also squeak in there 1 to 2 hours is typical like Nerdery administrative stuff. So we have teams within the Nerdery themselves that basically get together, share great ideas, share projects that are going really well, team wins, and just general like is everything going okay? From an office standpoint. Now I will say as well too, kind of beyond just like what's going on in the office when I get home. Part of what I'm doing as well too is I am super passionate about this stuff, so I'm constantly engaging on different websites and different forums to see like, hey, what's new or what's a better way of doing things I've already been doing. And really engaging kind of in the craft. And I think that's really important as well too. So that's one of the things that we actually brought over to Prime was, kind of teaching you how to engage in the thing that you're passionate about. Because you can be passionate about something but have no idea what the heck you're doing. So we teach you kind of how to fish, so to speak. So and that's a really short answer. I mean, there's Nerf gun fights and dogs and all sorts of other things that are going on in the Nerdery too. But yeah.
Cool. I can handle this one. It says, do you have any idea what the apprenticeship might look like, i.e. would they be paid? How long would they last? So I can give you some general outlines. And really the reason why I can give you kind of the general stuff is that that's the way that we're structuring the apprenticeship network. So as we've been working with partners to get them signed up, we've been clear that we want these relationships to be relationships between those employing companies and you as a graduate of Prime. We don't want it to be a thing where Prime is kind of sitting in the middle between you and somebody who theoretically you might want to work for at some point, because that can add complication to their ability to transition into an employment role. So what we've done with the partners is to say, here is the general framework, what we want the kind of the lowest common denominator of apprenticeships to be. And that is that we're asking employers that they are at least 3 months long, and most employers are looking at that or longer. I think 3 months is a little short for some people. They're looking more around 6 months. We're asking that they are paid and that they're paid a minimum of $15 an hour. Generally speaking, most of the employers that I've talked to are planning to offer north of that. I've heard people say, oh yeah, we think it'll be $20 an hour, we think it'll be $21 an hour. So they will be paid, and it'll be, it's not like a minimum wage kind of thing. It's a reasonable wage for apprenticeship work. And really, like, what's going to end up happening is our objective is to kind of have a market that you guys can work within, right? So when you get to graduation at Prime, we're going to have hopefully a group of different partners that are saying, yeah, we want apprentices. Here's our offer. This is what our apprenticeship looks like. And they might come in and talk to you about their environment or whatever and encourage you to apply. And really, you're going to apply to as many of those as you want to and as many as you think would be appropriate. Some of you might have opportunities where you want to pursue entry-level work right away out of the program, and that's totally fine too. Really, our objective is to try and help you get into the workforce, and we think that apprenticeship is going to be a good way for a lot of people to do that. But that's kind of what we're expecting in terms of it being a good first step for a lot of people coming through the program.
Yeah, definitely. We want to make sure that people have a range of opportunities out there, and some opportunities or some full-time jobs versus an apprenticeship might fit better for individual people, and that's kind of the goal, to make sure that there's a wide range out there.
Okay, so are there any specific topics or languages I could review even before the preload portion?
That's a good question. So one of the things I really wanted to get into the application process that these two vetoed me on was actually the use of jQuery from Code Academy. So the jQuery course, specifically Make an Interactive Website, I think is a fantastic course to kind of start to understand like the technical challenge in the application process. Does a really good job showing us that you understand how to do a static page and basically, load a page, pull in some other content, just help style that page, and that's kind of where it ends. The portion that I wanted to include that we did not include is the interactive portion of that. So thinking kind of about the theory of interaction and how it basically, how do you interact with something that's static, like, to change it in some way. So Make an Interactive Website, I think, is a fantastic Code Academy course to kind of tackle. If you go a little bit down that page, there's actually language-specific courses. So there's HTML and CSS that kind of does a better deep dive of those two topics. Then there's actually a JavaScript course and a jQuery course. And if you could knock out all three, you'd be in really good shape before hitting Code School. It'd actually save quite a bit of time. And just to give you guys kind of a heads up on how Code School works is that there is the video content. There is the interactive challenge content as well too. And so kind of getting to the point where you're hopping on Code School, doing the challenges through the interaction, you can kind of use that as a validation check that you know your stuff. So it would speed up the first couple of weeks of preload for you, but there is going to come a point where they're diving into a lot more advanced topics than what's covered in Code Academy. So I would guess probably by week 4 or 5, that starts to kind of becomes a lot more complicated, but don't quote me on that directly. But yeah, I think Code Academy has a plethora of stuff to kind of get you, if you're feeling the itch, go there and check those things out.
Mm-hmm. We cut out of the application, so you had a great answer for this question. We were impressions in that. Yeah. All right, so we mentioned that there are 20 spots in the program. How many applicants are there? And I guess the best way to answer that is that there are 20 slots in each cohort. And right now we have applications open for 4 different cohorts. That's not because we're only having 4 cohorts, it's because those are the next 4 cohorts. So it's the one starting in classroom in April, the one starting classroom in July, the one starting classroom in August, and the one starting classroom in September. There will be one that starts classroom in October, one that starts classroom in November, one that starts classroom in December. Right now, we're at a point where we have had really strong response. We've had a great number of people that have begun applications and a pretty decent number of people that have completed applications at this point, with still a couple weeks to go before beta cohort applications are closed. Once beta cohort applications are closed, we're going to continue to accept applications for those other cohorts going forward. It's just that we're having to make decisions and everything for beta. So I guess I can't give you exact numbers, but what I can tell you is that we've had some good response, but that really we're not necessarily looking to like fill a quota or stop. What we're trying to do is figure out who are the people that are going to be successful in the program. The admissions process is not about us weeding out a specific number of people or coming up with a certain ratio. It's about us identifying who's going to be able to be helped by the program and who is it a good fit for. And if you're a good fit for the program and you're applying, whether you're applying now, whether you applied in December, or whether you're applying in July, we're going to find a way to be able to offer you admission at some point. It might not be, the next possible cohort. It might be a little bit further down the line, but we really are committed to try and make sure that everybody who can be helped by the program has an opportunity to be helped by the program. Next question says, what are some of the typical career paths for a software developer? Can you describe some of the directions you can go? I think we probably, at least both Scott and I can talk a little bit. So I started as a developer. So you can do all sorts of non-developer things as a developer as well. So I was a designer and I got into development. I was a developer for a while. I was a development manager, which was kind of a hybrid role between project management, developing, and then also providing kind of human resource management for the developers that were working on my team. I then switched over and was running a team in marketing where I was actually doing the development for internal nerdery projects and like our website and things like that. And did that for a long time. And I moved into executive management relatively quickly after that. So depending upon the type of company, there are some very non-traditional paths, but I'll let Scott tell you about some things that are maybe a little more common.
Sure. Mark alluded to this concept of developer stem cells earlier in the conversation. I think it's a really good way to put it. So we cover, part of the reason why we chose the technology stack that we chose is that it covers a wide range of kinds of development. So everything from the front end, from like what you see in the website, all the way to the back end. So basically you kind of think of it all the way from CSS to databases. So it's really does cover a huge, I don't know, just out of words. Like it's moved me at 5 o'clock on the Wednesday. But basically, if you want to get into the more design-centric stuff, you could actually become a front-end developer, or possibly even take that into a UX career path, which is user experience, which is more of the theory of interactions of websites and applications. And certainly having a developer background makes you a really much stronger candidate.
They call those people unicorns because they're so rare and valuable.
And then there's something, there's front-end development, and then there's back-end development. There's something I like to call middle-end development, which is a little more of like logic-based interaction stuff. So you can kind of think of this as the JavaScript and Node developers. There's actually, this becomes more and more of a popular field as technologies like Node and Angular start to leverage JavaScript. And really these are people who understand the logic of applications and really kind of how things interact with each other, both from the database and in the front end. The human experience, the computer experience, what's kind of going on in between. And as we get more and more technologies kind of being put into that middle area, there's a greater need for those kinds of people. Then of course there's the backend developers, so people who the PHPs, the people who really mess with the databases, and and so really the career progression for those goes from like the typical junior developer to standard developer to senior principal and so on. So you could actually be kind of a manager of technology. Then of course there's the other side of it too, a little more like Mark's path, where you're looking at things like development management, CTO type roles. So there's a number of different things. Actually,
people management within a development context is another role.
Probably worth mentioning is a lot of times I get LinkedIn requests for people asking me if I'm interested in positions that actually have nothing to do with actually developing and leverage more of the fact that I have a development background, but they want me to kind of do this other thing because you understand development. You don't need whatever. But so it's development. I can't say enough good things about it. Everyone should learn how to code, but there's lots of different ways.
The other main areas that I think are likely to be opportunities for people, and that there are often paths forward in, would be in a consulting context. So people coming out of development to go into more of a kind of an architect type role, something where they're helping to define a project, but maybe they're not necessarily involved in the execution of that project as much. That is really common in some kind of like a sales engineer kind of thing for some companies, depending on what kind of technology you learn in your career. And then also we have a role at the Nerdery called solution designer that is it's essentially a customer facing role where you're kind of helping clients brainstorm on what ideas they want, and then you're helping to document what that would look like, and then working with other developers, other current developers to kind of provide quotes and estimates and stuff like that. That sort of technical writing thing is also another, if you're passionate about writing, that could be a way forward. It's not necessarily a traditional path, but it's another thing that's open for people, and there's really a lot of options.
Yeah, to be crystal clear on that, first two things. First note is it's getting dark here, so you can kind of see everything. All of a sudden it's black. That's why the sun's going down. The second part of that is that, just to be really clear, what Mark just mentioned is a really cool area and field. And as I said earlier in the conversation, just as we're accountable to you guys, making sure that the jobs are also accountable to our hiring partners. So I want to be crystal clear that we are looking to graduate developers. So we are looking for people who are interested in becoming developers, because we need to fill what our hiring partners would like to see. So,
yeah. This is much more about the pathway that your career could take once you have that kind of grounding as a junior developer, and going from there.
It takes a long time to build up the language and the grammar of being a good developer. So it's not an overnight thing to just jump into another program where you can speak that effectively within a different role. It's definitely an initial commitment, and it makes sense to learn and basically pay those dues and get to a certain point where you're able to do it effectively. So we're definitely not necessarily looking for people who want to do something else straight out of the gate, but as a career goal, it definitely makes sense.
So we have it's kind of the 10-minute warning. I have 3 questions on deck, but if you guys have questions, do be sure and get them in now so we can get to them before we're done. This next question says, I spent 1.5 years with Team Treehouse. It's a great site. To establish front and back end skills. I've had opportunities to complete freelance projects, but I wanted to take the skills to a full-time employer. How will Prime help me get ready for the business world?
Great question. Can I take this?
Go for it.
Cool. So one of the big things, the big components about Prime Academy is that, yes, there is the technical component, and that's a huge component. But as Mark mentioned earlier, one of probably the bigger portion of what Prime Academy is really how to be a software engineer. And only less than less than 40% of what being a software engineer is actually about is technical. So the other 60 is how do you understand the business, right? Do you understand how to work within a team context of getting a project from start to finish? And when I say from start to finish, I mean working with the stakeholders to actually design the solution. To then, of course, build the scope of work for the solution, then execute that scope of work to actually build the project, to then the QA, to test it, and then to actually launch it. And there's a lot of different components, and that's really what Prime Academy is all about. Is yes, technical, but also the rest of it as well too. So what does that other 60% look like to actually becoming a software engineer? So Team Treehouse will definitely put you in a strategic position to fly through some of the technical stuff, but I promise you that there are things that there will be a lot you could take away from Prime Academy. That big portion of stuff that you're going to take away is the stuff that the hiring network actually is probably more fixated on. So that's again really quickly.
Yeah, I just, having had all these conversations with the employers, I can't agree more. I think that the opportunity that you're going to get at Prime versus somebody who's coming in without necessarily that background or without that level of grounding in it is different. You're going to kind of be focusing on some different things, but I think that you'll find that the employers are really, they're going to value the skills that you have, but like the guy that I talked to this morning said we don't really hire based on technology or technical background. They're looking for something a little bit more than that. And we hopefully can help you with all of it. So. Ask this question that I got via email. We kind of had answered this, but it says, what kind of success have you had with job placement? What's a typical starting job title? And we kind of covered it a little bit. I would say that, the main thing to know is that we haven't placed anybody yet because we haven't had any students yet. We haven't even accepted any yet, but we're cautiously very, very optimistic about the opportunity to be able to place people. We're expecting that the titles for those early placements are going to be junior software developer, junior software engineer, associate software developer, that kind of thing. Associate front-end developer. Yeah, there's kind of, there is no consistency in job titles in software development. Welcome to the cold hard reality of that. But there is tons and tons of opportunity out there, and we think that you're going to have a great shot at it coming through Prime. So. This question says, can you tell us more about the instructors that will be facilitating the cohorts, their background and experience, etc.? Will each phase of the cohort be taught by a single instructor, or are there individual instructors, or will each phase be taught by a different instructor, or will they all be taught by the same instructor? Or will it be broken up by different parts of the program and language or topic? And I will start by giving a high-level overview, and then I'm going to let Scott kind of talk about himself, because Scott here is going to be the lead instructor on the first two cohorts, so the beta cohort and then the first of the production cohorts, so the ones that start in April and July, respectively, in the classroom. The model that we have for instruction is that, and it might look a little different as we're booting up, but it's generally true, is that we have two people dedicated to a cohort. We have an instructor like Scott, and Scott will talk about himself, but then we also have a mentor, and the mentor is, the plan is that we'll be drawing the mentors from the hiring network largely. So organizations like the Nerdery will have an agreement with us where a mid-level or senior engineer that's interested in a different kind of experience for a while can take a sabbatical where Prime pays their salary and they come into the classroom and help kind of mold you guys and train you and teach you the things that they know and bring their kind of current context into the classroom and support the work that the primary instructor, in the first two cases, Scott, is going to be doing to provide that kind of backbone of support and instruction. So with that said, Scott, you can maybe kind of talk about a little bit about your background.
Sure. I think one of the big important things, and this is just a general prime instructors, one of the big things that we decided to kind of make a decision on was what does this position actually look like? Does it look more like a software developer, or does it look more like an instructor? Because just frankly, one pays better than the other. And so one of the things that we decided early on was that this looks a lot like a person who is a really kick-ass software developer that also knows how to teach as well too. So we're not paying like a standard instructor. We're actually looking a little more like a software developer in that regard, which is important because we want to make sure that we were appealing to really good software engineers, because that's really important to us that we get people who know their craft first and then also can teach. Now, my specific background is, and I kind of talked a little bit about this before, but while working at the Nerdery, I've also been teaching for Stanford Brown, which is a college, and teaching specifically web design, animation, and game design and development, specifically in the areas of programming and visual design. Before that, I was actually working for Best Buy as a technical trainer, so flying all around the country doing technical trainings to groups of 200 people at a time for week-long trainings for 8 hours a day. So I'm very, very used to teaching people very technical things. I think one of the things I want to mention is that my teaching style is that I teach it from the perspective of somebody who obviously is not a developer, which I know sounds kind of silly, but once you engage in some technical training, specifically, we talked about that line, learning JavaScript and splattering technologies. Once you kind of get into that, people just assume that you know a lot of things, and I hate that. I hate that because a lot of technical training assumes that you have a lot, that you're proficient in other technological areas, and so they don't want to take the time to explain some of this other stuff that's going on, and that really bothers me. Like, I just can't, in some regard, take some things for granted. I need it kind of spelled out, and so I know that everybody kind of gets stuck at different places. So not only am I used to understanding where people get stuck, but also I understand that what do you mean? I don't have that part of me that says, what do you mean you don't get it? Like I understand what it feels like to be learning something really, really difficult. And to kind of keep my headspace within that, I actually, as Mark had mentioned earlier, he's a lifelong learner. I am also a lifelong learner. I make it a huge part of what I like to do is learn new things. So one of the things that we're noticing is that we have a lot of people who have Rails, which is a programming language. They have a Rails background, so I'm teaching myself Rails because of the 7 programming languages I know, I don't know that specific one, so that it can get me closer to understanding where their questions might be coming from. Also, I'm teaching myself guitar, just as another recent thing. But these guys laugh and chuckle, but the thing is that it's something that I want to tackle because it's new and it's different and it's weird, and so I want to struggle a bit because I don't want to forget what it's like to be completely really terrible at something, because that's important, especially as we go into getting people who are going to be in an intensive program for an extended period of time. And when we look forward to add on more instructors for those cohorts starting after July, we're looking for people who are similar, right? So they have a huge technical background, they understand the technology stack, but also like, are they lifelong learners, and are they just empathetic teachers?
One thing I guess I would just put a bow on the conversation around that by saying that, you know, our objective right now is that the teacher and the mentor pair that is dedicated to a cohort will provide the majority of the education for that cohort. Like we're not expecting that you have Scott for the first month, and then you have somebody else for the second month, and then some third person for the third month. That's not to say that we're not going to have crossover, and that if you know, Scott has a background and a passion for game development. So if we end up with like kind of some game development sections or something that we're teaching through game development, that might be something where Scott might kind of chime in and help across the board. And we'll be bringing a lot of people in from the community too, from the hiring network, to talk about specific subjects and things like that. So you're not just limited to learning from these two people, but you are going to have two people that really get to know you well and get to know your strengths and the places where you struggle and how you learn best over your time at the program. So.
Yeah, we're definitely vested in making sure that you have consistency in the instructional experience, but we also want to make sure that we're expanding your network and introducing you to new people and new things at the same time. So a little bit of mix as well.
We recognize we're at time, but I definitely want to get to the rest of these questions.
Yeah, well, we'll answer the other questions that are in the interface here. And this is a great question. It's kind of hard to answer, but it says, this will be a second career for me. Is an older age a problem in the industry? And I'm gonna give you kind of a two-part answer. If you look at the demographics of the industry, it's really hard for me to say, no, that's not a problem at all. The fact of the matter is that a lot of people that are getting into dev are younger. But what I can tell you is that I have spent the last couple months just about every day having conversations with employers that are interested in recruiting talent. And what they have told me over and over and over again is that they are looking for more mature candidates. They're looking for people that want a career, that aren't gonna wanna switch jobs every 12 months, that are interested in building something meaningful. And I think that a lot of those employers are really not that picky about where they can find that. I think if they can find that in some cases more in a slightly older workforce, I think they're actually really excited about that. I can't guarantee you that it's not going to be that you might not run into some problems. There are definitely well-documented cases in the technology industry of people really being focused on hiring people that look, act, and have demographics that are just like they are. And that's actually part of what has me really excited about Prime, is that I think that we're going to be able to offer, with the diversity of candidates that we're getting, a much more reflective set of candidates than what the typical technology department is choosing from right now. We're really pleased that we've seen a tremendous number of women applicants to the program, which is not, women are not well represented in development as a profession, and we really think that that programs like this and other accelerated learning programs that are offering alternate ways to get into the profession are really going to provide a means for adjusting that. So I guess what I can tell you is that we've heard from people from their mouths that they say, we really want these, a more diverse set of clients. We really want people with more maturity, really want people of color. We want women to apply. I certainly hope that that's earnest, and I hope that will be your experience. I believe it will be within the hiring network, but I certainly can't sit here and tell you that age discrimination is not a thing in technology. It's just not. It would be disingenuous of me to say that. But I can say that I think there are a lot of great companies out there, the Nerdery and many of the others in our hiring network, that aim to not have that color their hiring decisions. So
Absolutely. It's a great question.
Okay, so this says, it looks like your program emulates the Hack Reactor model. Could you explain why you chose JavaScript as a basis for the program? Hack Reactor, for those of you who aren't aware, is another accelerated learning program. They're based out of San Francisco. And yeah, we've drawn inspiration from Hack Reactor, from Dev Bootcamp, from many other across the country different accelerated learning programs. And we're kind of trying. We've had the great fortune to be able to talk to a lot of instructors, a lot of students from all of those different programs, and really try and make sure that we're starting at a point that those programs are at and then building enhancements and making it better on top of that, rather than kind of making the same mistakes that everybody else has made. We want to make new and exciting mistakes as we move forward. As far as JavaScript as the basis for the program, I'll give you my spin on it, and you guys can add on if you want to. We picked JavaScript for a couple reasons. I think that, you call it Hack Reactor, and they also have a JavaScript-based curriculum. I think they have a JavaScript-based curriculum for a slightly different reason than we do. I think I would guess that Hack Reactor is JavaScript-based partially because there are a lot of JavaScript technologies that are very in vogue. There's Node, there's Express, there's Angular, Ember, things like that. Many of which we're covering within our program, that are kind of the new hotness in startup community and entrepreneurship. And they some of them are seeing a lot of play in an enterprise context as well. And I think that a lot of these other boot camps are very focused on serving an entrepreneurial hiring market. So a lot of startups, a lot of things like that. We chose JavaScript partially because we do want to appeal to that, but I'm not going to sit here and try and convince you that we have as many startups in Minneapolis as there is in San Francisco. JavaScript for us became a good fit because of the ubiquity of JavaScript. JavaScript is a technology that is present in every web browser that's being used today, essentially. It's a technology that has applications on the back end, on the server side. It has applications in some mobile frameworks and things like that. So while it's not going to be the only technology that you need to be able to build your career, it's a technology that your knowledge of will never count against you. It's always going to be useful in some way at just about any development job you would get. And so that's really the objective, is to, if we're going to teach you, we would just as soon have a teaching language that you can actually get some utility out of, versus us saying, well, we're going to do Ruby or we're going to do Python or something, and then you have to go try and find a job in Ruby or Python or relearn from there. We want to make sure that you actually can use the teaching language that you're learning on. So.
Yeah, actually, just to expand on that real quick, it would have been a lot easier for us to choose some other languages and feel successful that we taught those concepts. JavaScript is the nerdery. Some of the folks around here like to call it the Wild West, and it's really fair. It can be difficult in some regard, which means it's a little bit harder to teach. I am certainly up for the challenge. I've certainly been teaching it for a long time, and I think, as Mark put, it's a perfect teaching language because a little bit of that Wild West nature, because of some of the cool things that are happening in the JavaScript community, it makes it really, really appealing. Or sorry, in the web community, it makes it really, really appealing language to teach. So, and I could just keep going on and on and on. Why JavaScript? Yeah. But
Yeah, there's actually a lot of great resources out there. One of the things that a lot of people tout when they talk about JavaScript is the rise of JavaScript as really being the dominant language on GitHub, which is as you guys, for those of you who have submitted your applications, know, is a tool that people use to share source code for projects and to collaborate on work through Git. If you look at the graphs of new project submissions and the language of choice for those, JavaScript is just clobbering the competition. It really is becoming one of the preeminent languages for actually getting stuff done, as well as just being a part of the development in many, many, many other circumstances. So,
great question.
Last question says, is a live internet connection required for all homework during the preload and classroom sessions? Will it be possible to download an assignment in advance and complete it offline? I have a partial answer for this, and you might have more detail. So to the extent that we're using the Code School stuff, there is, I don't know if they offer it for the browser. I kind of don't think they do. They have an iPad app that does allow you to download the video and watch the video offline. I don't think that you can do the interactive portions of that without an internet connection, but the videos would be available offline. Really, I mean, generally speaking, if you don't have a reliable internet connection at home, I would plan to spend some time at the library during the preload phase or whatever. You're going to want to be able to have access to the internet. If you're on a mountaintop or something, there are books you can read, but it's not quite what preload is about. So
yeah, I would just say that just kind of as a qualifier, the answer is yes, you need internet connection. Just to be kind of frank and upfront, like because you're interacting with Code School, in order for it to do its job, to give you the feedback that you need to get, like, hey, you have this one little part wrong, it needs to be able to assess your code and give you that feedback. So without it, you're not getting that element of it, and we need you to get that element because we need you to reach a certain point in learning. Now, with that said, going back to something we said earlier, is that if you are having like a week or something where you're kind of like, oh, I'm going to be out of town, or I'm going to have spotty internet connection, we can work with you on that. But just in general, yes, we require an internet connection.
And I guess
one too, school would be the other part of that.
Yeah. It's just, once you get into school, you'll have a stable internet connection, reliable internet connection there. Part of what I guess I would expand on that to say is that if you want to pursue a career and you want to pursue a career in development, I would really encourage you to make having a reliable, stable internet connection at your home a priority. And I know everybody makes budget choices, and it can be really a tough call. But just as when you're a mechanic, you want to own some tools. If you want to be a developer, you need to kind of have access to the tools of your craft, especially if you're trying to build a career from scratch and you don't have an existing position yet. And that's part of the reason why we require people to have laptops, have their own laptops in the program, and we're not just providing workstations for you, is that it's, if you leave your computer behind when you leave our program, that's not going to help you get a job. You need a computer to be able to get a job. Essentially, as a developer, you're going to have a hard time otherwise. So kind of the same thing is true with internet connection, especially if you want to be doing web development. Some of the stuff, once you get into the school, there's actually a fair amount of stuff that you can do on your local machine with in the browser on your local machine using it as a server. But yeah, I mean, it's really we're going to be asking you why you don't have an internet connection if you don't have one, because it's kind of a prereq. So that was kind of a whatever kind of question to end on, but we're done. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, and if you have additional questions that you didn't feel like asking here, or the things that you feel like are more specific to you, feel free to go ahead and send those to us. You can send them to hello@primeacademy.io. If you have questions about your application or are running into any problems there, go ahead and send them to admissions@primeacademy.io, and that'll go to these guys too, and they'll be able to answer your questions for anything you might be running into. We really are excited that you guys are interested in the program. We hope to see applications from you, and we're more than happy to answer any questions that you might have that would help you kind of determine whether or not it's a good fit for you. So thanks again for showing up, and let us know if you have any questions online, and we look forward to seeing your resumes with your applications. So
stay warm, everyone, and nice job. I saw a lot of people on here who we've been looking through the applications already, and really excited about you guys. So keep up the good work.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Have a great night.
Have a good night. Bye.